our mics on?
We want to do a roll call of attendance, so people at home know who's here.
All right.
This got so complicated.
Yeah.
Already?
We're trying to help, yeah, I had.
It now being 5:15, we're going to call this work session for November 28th, 2023 to order. Mr. Krantz, could you call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Since I don't have a list in front of me, maybe perhaps everyone could just go around the room and announce your name and position. I'll start with myself, Michael Krantz, Director of Administration.
Joan Suit, Recording Secretary.
Mary Chance, Commissioner.
Jake Taylor, Commissioner.
Paula Edding, Chair.
Steve Chismar, Commissioner. Jim Rutledge, Commissioner.
Eddie Hopkins, Town Administrator.
Elizabeth Thompson, Town Council.
Kevin Small, Planning.
Lisa Moody, Director of Finance.
Angela Robertson, Director of Economic Development.
Steve Klein, Director of Public Works.
Chuck Moore, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And Mr. Krantz, could you call the roll?
All those in favor? Pardon me, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda? We'll start with Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Great. And now we have first on our agenda the Town Administrator's Report. Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple, get used to the microphones. Couple things, couple announcements, mainly from me, and then some reports from the directors.
Eddie.
But
Yeah, you gotta put it closer. She can't hear you.
there we go. Okay. So a couple of announcements and then reports from some of the directors. But just a reminder for the Christmas parade, which is this weekend, the parade route for you all staging will be on Main Street, essentially where Das Beer Hall is. Look for me. I'll be your rally point and get you set up. You all will lead the parade, obviously walking through the route, and then the parade, Mr. Blum has advised me, they've actually cut a few of the entries down, so the parade will be a little bit shorter, but nonetheless fun for everyone. So you all will be a part of that walking. And then again, look for me, and I will have you line up at the rally point.
May I ask what time?
Sure. The
May I
parade,
ask what time?
yeah, the parade, 1 second, Mrs. Chance.
I know the parade starts at, I think, 3:30, but what time do
Parade
you want us
starts at
there?
3:30. Originally, Mr. Blum wanted everybody there like by 1, which is a little unreasonable for you all. So I would recommend if you're there by 2:45 to 3, he starts getting nervous around 2:45, and he'll start to get a little edgy. And I know we're live streaming, so Mike will appreciate my comments. So, but if you're there by 3, I would recommend too that you park on the outer perimeter. Main Street will be closed. And once it's closed, if you get into any one of those lots, you won't be able to get back out. So my recommendation potentially would be park here at Town Hall. Although Town Hall, we will have the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, and it will be crowded here as well. So you may want to find an area to park that allows you to leave unencumbered if you need to leave early for any reason. So I'd recommend 2:45, between 2:45 and 3. Thank you. That was part of my report, and I overlooked that. Also for the commissioners, just a reminder, the town staff's Christmas party will be on December the 7th. You are all 5 of you are welcome to attend. You will be introduced and recognized, and you can come and stay for as little or as long as you would like, but that's on December the 7th at 12 noon. That'll be at the Armory. The couple of you have reached out to me with various problems in the area. Probably one of the things that you'll begin to encounter as new commissioners are citizens who will bring issues to your attention, anywhere from illegally parked vehicles to homes whose grass is not cut, any number of issues. If you just simply reach out to me, I'll coordinate that with the respective department head, and we'll handle that. Some of these problems are reoccurring problems, which we've been addressing over time, but because of any number of challenges have not been able to resolve them successfully. As you probably know, sometimes many of the homes that are dilapidated are the result of mental health issues, so it's a little more complicated than just issuing a notice of violation. But let me know if you would, if a citizen contacts you on any of those, and myself and the department heads will work through that. Likewise, for meetings like today and others, if you have questions in advance of the agenda, if you would let us know what those questions are, that way when you ask the question or pose the question during a meeting such as this or a town meeting, we will have the answer ready for you, or at least be prepared if we're not able to get the data for you in a timely manner. So if you'll just let us know ahead of time, and I realize questions come up during presentations, during the talks and so forth, that they come up just inadvertently, but if you know something in advance, let us know so we can research the information well ahead of time. Circling back to one of the problems that was recently brought to our attention, just as an example, and my pages are out of order, I apologize. M&T Bank, for example, the parking lot off of Bond Street, there was an issue. The judges were concerned about a lack of proper lighting, especially this time of the day when many of the staff at the state's attorney's office and local firms who use that lot are leaving. The lot wasn't properly lighted. So that, although that lot doesn't belong to us, we can liaise with County Department of Public Works, the Facilities Division, and have them address the lighting issue, which they have agreed to do. Just wanted to remind you again, some of these, just so you don't forget and you can manage your calendars. Secretary Kevin Anderson will be visiting Harford County on December the 11th. December the 11th, correct, Angela?
That's correct.
Thank you. December the 11th. Angela and I have worked together to identify a project we would like to present to Secretary Anderson, the Army Marketplace, as a project, successful business, downtown business project, and then also potentially work with a local business who grew from the Marketplace to Main Street, the success of that growth between the Marketplace and Main Street. So since that business is only half a block away from the Armory, we're hoping Secretary Anderson will not only go through a presentation with us at the Army Marketplace, but then walk the half a block to actually talk to the business owner whose business successfully grew from the Marketplace. So anyway, that'll be December the 11th, and as you're aware from the invitation, that will start at the Harford County Public Library on Tollgate Road down in Abington. That's where it will start. There is an RSVP that I found today wasn't working correctly, so you may have to email Mrs. Goins, who is listed in the RSVP separately if you want to attend, because the link, at least on my desktop, the link was not working correctly. So you may, if you want to RSVP to attend that. We do not know the logistics yet. That is, it'll start at 8 a.m., but we don't know what time Secretary Anderson is supposed to be in Bel Air yet. We'll have that hopefully soon. I did ask for those logistics. Just a reminder, several of you have already RSVP, but just as a reminder, the Alliance Annual Breakfast is this week. I think several of you have already RSVP'd to attend that, but just a reminder that I don't believe RSVPs are closed, so if you decide at the last minute between now and Thursday, Ruth and Mike's in my office can get you seated. Wanted to defer to Angela just for a second to share some good news with you about our Arts and Advisory and Entertainment District. So, Angela?
Thank you. As you may be aware, the Economic Development Department manages our state-designated Arts and Entertainment District. In 2021, I was part of a small group that started a countywide initiative called Harford County Arts Week. There was a lot of hard work that went into that initiative the first year and in its subsequent year, this year in 2023. Earlier this month at the Maryland Tourism and Travel Summit, Harford County Arts Week was recognized as the best product or event in the medium population category. In February 2022, our small committee approached Visit Harford to provide support, and they agreed to provide that support to our arts group and have been a wonderful partner since then. Their support really made that arts initiative that's countywide happen. It created great partnerships between the municipalities and different arts organizations, and they were the ones who accepted the award at the summit through Visit Harford. The Bel Air Arts and Entertainment District was an integral part of the work behind the scenes in the planning and execution of those events both years, from concept development all the way down to the smallest detail. So we were thrilled to see that initiative be recognized in a statewide forum and wanted to share that great news with you.
Thank you, Angela. The other I sent you all earlier today, and if it was a duplicate email, I apologize, but the prevalence of xylazine in Maryland in terms of heroin and fentanyl-related overdoses, it's a state executive summary Fortunately, and I'll defer to the chief a little bit on this, fortunately, we're not seeing a significant issue with this in our jurisdiction as yet, but I think it's well worth reading and just having in the back of your mind in case you start seeing news reports on it. Chief, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, yes, sir. I can add something to that. Xylazine, we haven't seen it in town. In fact, knock on wood, we've been pretty lucky, very lucky, actually, with overdoses and overdose deaths. For the year, we've had 3.
I don't think your mic is on, Chief.
3 in the town of Bel Air. We've had 3 total in the town of Bel Air, 1 overdose death and 2 other overdoses. Neither of those that I know of had any kind of indication of xylazine being involved in it. But just to give you a heads up, in 2017, we were up to 17 to 20 overdoses with like a half a dozen deaths for the year. So we've managed to, we've got a pretty good program, and I'll go over that with you in detail at our orientation. It's called the LEAD program. But I think we're making a difference with that program. So I haven't seen anything with xylazine in the town. Pretty sure it's been in the county, but not here.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
So like I said, I just want to make sure the commissioners are aware. One of the things that, given my background and a number of public safety issues, I like to keep the commissioners situationally aware of issues. So while this is a state executive report, oftentimes the chief and I are privy to other intelligence information that we can share on a non-disclosure basis, but we can share that with you to keep you abreast so that when you hear these things going on in the community, you're fully aware. So, and I think, Madam Chair, the last thing is, I've been, just for your edification, Commissioner Edding, or Chairman Edding, rather, we are working with all 3 of the new commissioners for orientation. It has been a tad bit of a challenge to get everybody's schedule squared away, but we are working diligently to protect the integrity of the Public Information and Open Meetings Act, while at the same time trying to give the new commissioners as much detail as we possibly can, saving deeper dives for individual sessions, if you will. And with that, that's all I have for my report, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Next, we are moving into our tentative agenda for the town meeting on Monday, December 4th, which will be at 6 p.m. here in Town Hall. And first on that list will be a presentation about the Appearance and Beautification Committee Awards, and that will be Ms. Robertson? No? Whose is it? Ah, Mr. Klein.
Yes, each year the Appearance and Beautification Committee use the summer months and fall months to come up with houses that they believe do a better job of decorating and making them beautiful with flowers and so forth. They have a business, a residential, and then they have a new award. It's called the Phoenix Award. And the Phoenix Award is an award that is given to a house that is basically rebuilt and made to look new from an old thing. So they'll take over, they'll present their awards, and that's it.
Great.
Yep.
Look forward to that. I remember last year's Phoenix Award. It was really
Yeah.
impressive, the changes they made to that building.
Yeah.
Next, we will have public comment on unfinished business, which will be the 4 ordinances that we introduced on the 20th. That is not the official advertised public hearing that is required by state law, but we will be taking public comment at that time as well. Any comments from any commissioners regarding those 4 ordinances? Any discussion?
One item on there, I noticed that the county had passed an ordinance on their, passed a bill about restricting apartments in B3.
They did.
In B3 zones, okay, I think they did it on, except in the Chesapeake Science and Security
Correct.
Corridor, the CSSC. And I thought, things like that, it'd be interesting to see what the legal side of it is, because I understand that, Maryland, I understand Maryland has some parameters, or the state of Maryland has some laws about what we can and cannot do with those things. So I was just wondering if, what is the state law on what we can and cannot do about restricting certain things? Just because we're passing some ordinance now, we don't want to be out of line with those, and about density and apartment and condo density and townhouse densities, things of that nature.
Well, there's a lot of laws that are impacted when you make a zoning change. Everything from local to state to federal.
Okay.
So Madam Chair had sent me an email, and I am responded, and I'm doing some research now because I obviously stopped at a particular point and didn't go any further. I did address my concerns in an email to the commissioners, but I will continue to review that and get back to you, and that is on a topic for, I believe, a closed session.
Correct. I think we
Okay.
need a closed session, and we may want to add that to the agenda for the 4th, because I'm not sure if we have any more meetings between then and the 11th.
Don't know. I'll defer to Mr. Krantz there.
We don't have any.
Any work-
Can always meet whenever you want. Just let us know.
We can
and
certainly set up
24 hours
a
advance notice is
Yeah,
all
a
that's
special
required.
meeting for a closed session. If you want to do that, you can do that.
Okay. So is it the feeling of the board that you would like to have a special closed session or add it to the meeting for Monday, December 4th?
How would that operate, since that's a town hall meeting?
Correct. We would have a town hall meeting. We would then go into closed session. Then we would close the closed session, go back into open session, probably just for the purposes of closing. I would anticipate it would be more polite to the public to complete all our public
Yes.
business before we went into closed session.
Well, that would work best, I think.
That work for you, Ms. Thompson?
It's the 4th, right? Don't worry, I'll be ready.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's necessary
Yeah.
to go into the closed session to discuss this.
I agree, and I
Okay.
think the sooner the better.
Yep.
So we'll do it the 4th.
Yep.
All right, so we'll add that to the agenda for Monday, December 4th, then, closed session regarding the 4 proposed ordinances. And there may be a couple of other items I cannot remember if we have anything else to discuss.
to address that at that time?
I think it's probably a good idea to have our closed session and address all our closed session issues at once as early in the game as we can. Okay. All right,
Madam Chair, if I could just a question. So when, we'll take public comment on the introduced 4 ordinances on the 4th, and then have official public hearing then on the 11th, correct?
correct.
So will the same people that comment on the 4th be able to comment on the 11th?
Absolutely,
Okay, just making,
absolutely. Any further questions about our 4 ordinances that have been introduced? All right, then we'll move on to C, new business, Resolution 1215-23 for Armory Marketplace rental fee structure. And that is Ms.
That is
Robertson.
me, yeah. So this is a pretty simple change, but because we have 3 commissioners that are new to the board, I'd like to just give a little history on the Armory Marketplace project. The program at Armory Marketplace was established in 2017. It was a bank of 22 former Maryland National Guard garages that were converted using predominantly grant funding, and they were converted into an award-winning, highly selective business incubator program. The program offers 4 suites to new and emerging business owners so that they can grow their business and then move to a permanent location somewhere within municipal limits. The 5th suite that is there, you may know as Hartford Artists Association Gallery. That is the largest suite, and it anchors the north end of the Arts and Entertainment District, and it is a permanent tenant to Armory Marketplace, so it does not operate under the same fee structure that we'll be discussing this evening. It also houses our Visitors Center for the town of Bel Air, which used to be in the Armory when the Armory was open all the time, and also one of the things that was done several years ago was to add signage along 95 to direct people to Bel Air. Part of having that signage is having a visitor center open on the weekends, and the Armory was not staffed on the weekends, so we moved that visitor center to Hartford Artists Gallery. We do have a separate MOU with Hartford Artists that falls outside of the lease fee structure that we'll be talking about this evening. The Marketplace program gives business owners an opportunity during their critical startup phase to offer them a below market rate lease for up to 3 years, which gives them the time to establish their business, to understand the demand for their product, and to strengthen their financial standing so that they can get a really solid start elsewhere in a permanent location. In addition, the program also offers business coaching to those entrepreneurs. marketing and technical assistance, and an opportunity to build strong community partnerships. Armory Marketplace has been very successful in graduating 4 new businesses to our downtown corridor in about 6 years. The goals of the program are to encourage retail development, to nurture entrepreneurs, to increase pedestrian traffic downtown, and to create new jobs in the community. It also helps to make sure Bel Air is consistently infused with new life and unique businesses that make our town a really great place to live. The spaces that are there are all shells. They have they're just a concrete floor. They don't have really any amenities. They don't have running water. They share a bathroom space. And the lease rate was initially established through a resolution in 2017 at $6 a square foot. At which, at the time when we established that, that was approximately half of the market rate. We are proposing an increase to $8 a square foot. That's still really reasonable. I polled 14 available spaces in the downtown core to get an idea of what the market is charging currently. The average of those 14 spaces that I polled was $19.26 a square foot. If I drop the highest and lowest, because there were some outliers, it brought it down to $18.65 a square foot. So I'm bringing before you a proposed change in that rate. I'm doing that now as we have a current vacancy that will be occupied through the month of December with the Train Garden, but we are actively looking for a new tenant for that space in January. And I'd like, if the rates are going to change, I'd like to bring a new tenant in at the new rate if that new rate meets your approval. Additionally, we will be making several changes to the lease agreement that fall outside of the fee structure. So that's not included as part of the resolution, but I want you to be aware of those changes as well. There's currently a $500 security deposit that those tenants pay that they get back if they locate within municipal limits. They forfeit that $500 if they close their business for any reason or they locate outside of municipal limits. And we do that because we're doing a lot of work with those entrepreneurs, and we want them to stay in Bel Air and to occupy our vacant spaces that we have. So in addition to that clawback, we will also be adding we'll be keeping that the same, but then adding a $250 security deposit that can be used against any damages that are incurred in the space or against any unpaid bills that they may leave behind. If the BG&E utility, they pay their own utilities, and BG&E bills run behind. So if they leave the space and don't pay those bills, we want to have a security deposit in place so that the town doesn't end up eating that cost. There will also be an amendment to the lease agreement adding a fee for any parking passes that are not turned in and returned at the end of the lease. Currently, as part of their program, they receive 2 parking passes for the parking garage so that we can leave the lot that's at Armory Marketplace available for customers. So those things are happening outside of the change, but what I'm bringing before you on Monday is a rate change from $6 to $8 a square foot. Any questions I can answer? I know that was a lot more than normally would be required, but I wanted to make sure that you were really up to speed with the Armory Marketplace program for those of you that are new.
So when they come into the marketplace and sign a lease, their lease is for 3 years, so this won't affect any existing businesses?
Correct. We would do this for only incoming tenants. The way the current structure works is that they come in at $6 a square foot for their space, no matter which space they're in. They come in at $6 a square foot. After 1 year, their rent goes up $100 per month. After the second year, an additional $100 per month. And what that does is it gradually increases their rent burden as part of their expenses so that they can learn to adjust their finances so that they can afford a space in the standard market. So no, it would not affect the existing.
Anybody that's currently there.
Correct. And just to clarify, Madam Chair, as well, they may stay in the program for up to 3 years. Their initial lease is for 6 months, and then it goes month to month. That way, if we have someone, a business, say Reb Records is a great example, they were only in the program for 2 years, they found the perfect location on Main Street, so they were in a month-to-month agreement with us, able to jump on that space. So it's a 6-month initial lease and then goes month to month for up to 3 years.
Which makes a lot of sense, given what
Yeah.
your goal is at the end game.
Correct.
So anybody, though, that's currently in there will not be subject to these rate increases?
That is correct.
Okay. And my other question is there, and you may not know this, but is there any contractual language in there that they have to obey all federal, state, and local laws?
Liz, do you recall?
And my next question would be, when was the last time that the town's attorney had reviewed those agreements? This would be, it seems to me, if you're making changes, it would be a
Yes.
good time to take a look at
We have the town's attorney review every single time there's a
Okay.
lease created. So the last one would have been in June for Twisted Roots that opened
Great.
in July. So
Great.
they're reviewed each time.
Correct. Ms. Robertson is very diligent about getting me to review the leases and to address your specific concern concerning violations of state, federal, and local laws. There is a very specific provision in there, and that is a reason for terminating the lease.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions?
No, I have a comment, and I do want to compliment you on how well that has run and the success rate that the businesses have had at the marketplace and then to move out into the community. It was a great idea, and it's very successful, so.
Thank you very much.
Kudos.
We're really proud of the program. It's very unique,
Mhm.
unique not only in the state of Maryland, but across the country. I'm asked lots of questions about that program when I participate in economic development trainings with people from other areas. We have won 5 or 6 awards for the program, mostly statewide awards.
Yep. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's most impressive that you had the vision for that, because looking at those old garages, I was not seeing the vision, and it has turned out really great.
The before pictures are something else. So I certainly cannot take credit for that vision fully, but have been here since the beginning of the program to see it flourish, and it is something that we should all be very proud of as part of the town of Bel Air.
So I had a question about the origins of the changes specifically. Is this more a revenue measure, or is this a making the agreements closer in line with what the businesses can expect to see out in the standard market?
I think it's a little bit of both. We get very wide eyes, very wide, excited eyes from people when we tell them that it's $6 a square foot.
Of course.
So it's not realistic for them to expect that in the marketplace, and so we do want to ensure that they can go on and be successful elsewhere. In addition to that, over the past 6, now almost 7 years that we've had that facility, our expenses as a town have gone up as well, and we want to make sure that we cover that. The Department of Public Works does an amazing job for us with things like snow removal and cleaning the windows and maintenance to the restroom that's shared, all kinds of things that we've experienced expenses as the town. So we also want to make sure that we are covering some of those expenses as well.
So for the 4 suites, what's the total, what's the range of the rent they pay every month? Because they're different
Sure.
sizes, but obviously it's.
Yeah. At the $6 rate or at the $8 rate? I know the $6 rate off the top of my
Then
head.
give me
The
the
$8
$6.
rate I have to
Give me
look
the
up.
$6. I'll take that.
We have 3 suites that are very similar in size. They range in size from 671 square feet, which pays $335.50 a month plus utilities. The other three suites that currently are occupied by Cozy Cookies, Twisted Roots, and the Train Garden range in size from 880 to 870 to 891, I think, square feet, and they range in cost from $440 to $450, about? That's about right. Plus utilities.
Okay.
Let's see how close I was.
I just-
432 to 445.
No, I was just looking for a ballpark. See
Yep.
what- Yep. 4 to 450 range is what
Yep.
you're talking about, 380 to 440. Okay.
But, then you look at a business on Main Street that
Right.
might pay several thousand. So it's very different and does provide them an opportunity to really get us a really solid start, save money for any improvements they might need to make in a permanent location. It also allows businesses to establish a sales history that they would then be able to go to a financial institution and get lending opportunities that they might not have if they don't have those sales numbers behind them. So,
Great, I think it's a great program.
thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Robertson? No? All right, on to number 2 under new business, Resolution 121623, accepting the Harford County Growth Report, and this would be the Director of Planning, Mr. Kevin Small.
Thank you. I put out a package in front of you, and I also sent a few days ago the full growth report that you would be accepting. Right now, the resolution is for the 2022, that's not a typo, it's 2022 growth report. So it's the numbers are quite old, but that's just the way the county figures things based on their review of numbers that they get from Harford County Public Schools. Right now, Homestead Wakefield Elementary School and Bel Air Elementary School, you can see are highlighted on the in like a gray. Those are highlighted because those exceed the Harford County 110% range. So obviously it's the county, so they're going to provide us with whatever they see as being an issue. Those are the only two right now that would go under our current code. Under the code that, if and when that is passed or becomes effective, then I also highlighted in yellow the elementary schools that would then must adhere to the APF requirements. So that would basically include Hickory and Red Pump Road. I did provide both email and in your package a map that I got from Harford County Public Schools. You'll notice in there their numbers are different from the numbers that are in the 2022 growth report because their numbers are from September, whereas the growth report is from basically 2022. So that theirs are at least 9 months more current. It's more for your information rather than anything to do legislatively, but it is something for you to see how things, where the trends are going. And that does kind of also show all the little pieces of other attendance areas for Hickory Elementary, for Prospect Mill Elementary, for obviously Red Pump, Bel Air, and Homestead. So there are little pieces of other elementary schools that are touching or within Bel Air. The middle school and high school have no restriction, not only in the county plan, but also in the pending legislation that would not change. The one thing I always love here is if you look, I don't have the, yeah, I do. Southampton Middle, I just find it's kind of funny. If you look at Bel Air High School or in Bel Air Middle School, people that are living maybe 100 yards from Southampton Middle go to Bel Air Middle. So it's just, I know that they have a difficult job when they have to redistrict, but it's kind of funny. Is there any questions on what I provided you?
The only question and semi-comment is, as usual, we don't really get any, we just accept it. We can't argue with the numbers, we can't make any changes. The county gives us this, and then it becomes part of our plan, so to speak.
Yeah, the way the code's written, yes.
Yeah, I was reading through it, Mr. Small. It's like on page 18, I don't know if you have it up. I can.
Just the growth report?
On the growth
2022.
report, yeah, I was reading through it. It says that state law requires municipal jurisdictions to develop a municipal growth element. Do we, as part of the comprehensive plan, do we have, we did do that?
Yes.
I mean, we have that, okay. And then the other part was, they must identify future municipal growth areas outside of existing corporate limits and be submitted to the county for review and comment. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
If you look into the comprehensive plan, the growth element of the comprehensive plan identifies what would be potential areas for the town to grow into, and those are all outside the
Or-
corporate limits.
Okay, or annex in essence.
To annex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
those were given to the, not only the county, but also the state.
And is it also true that proposed annexations must be consistent with those outlined, in the plan, and permitted development on the annexed lands shall be in accordance with the county's zoning classification that is in place at the time of annexation?
Correct.
Okay.
And the only way that can be, you can get around that is for the county to, I don't know, provide a waiver to the difference between
Okay.
the two zonings that are, because a lot of
Because our
times.
zoning doesn't exactly line up with their zoning.
No.
Right, so that's, you can't translate one into the, so I was just curious about how that worked.
Yes, I mean, you are correct, though. It would require them to waive whatever proposed zoning an annex property
Okay.
would need to acquire, which actually happened with the property on Tollgate Road, South Tollgate Road.
Okay,
And that's usually done in conjunction with an annexation agreement that's permitted under the land use article, which in that case, President was absolutely done. We did an annexation
Right.
agreement, the town sought a waiver, sorry. The town signed a waiver from the county with
okay.
the request. Is that,
That's what that waiver was about. I do
That
remember
is-
them signing a waiver, I just didn't totally understand it, so now you gave me clarification. I got it now. Okay.
yeah, and we're gonna have something for you guys soon because we got the survey back on the 400 feet of the road to lock the two sides together. So we're trying to work with the county, who is not cooperating, to get them to consent to the 400 feet. But everybody else around there will consent.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And as I recall, with the zoning, you could change the zoning, but there would be a 5-year waiting period.
Yes.
Yes, under the annexation, we could change it, but they can't submit any development plans for 5 years to utilize that zoning. Okay.
And my other question, Mr. Small, if you know, and I'm not sure if I've heard this anywhere, Homestead Wakefield, they're of course doing a new school, and the rated capacity currently is 920. Is the new school going to have a higher rated capacity?
Yes.
Okay. What, do you know what number that is?
Couldn't tell you what that is.
Okay.
But I think it's over 1,000.
Okay. All right. Anything more on the growth report?
I just have a question, Director Small. So the Harford County Council, they adopted this growth report first, is that correct?
We're given the growth report. I believe they do adopt it, but I cannot say for sure whether that happens before we get it or it's, because it's issued twice a year. And we just adopt what we get from the planning and zoning folks up at Harford County.
Okay, just to be clear about it, so planning and zoning, they do the report, they submit it out to the legislative bodies, the county council for the county and us here, and I assume other municipalities.
Yes.
And we could be the first one approving it, or the county council could be the first one approving it. Have you ever seen a situation where a municipality approved it and then the county council said no?
Lately, what's been happening is we would, when I say lately, maybe about 4 years ago, we had a person who was within a week of December 1st and within a week of January or July 1st getting us the growth report. And in the last few years, well, that person retired. So then the last few years, it's been later and later and later. So that's why sometimes we hold back on giving that to you until after a period of time to make sure that they've done what they need to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May I-
Appreciate the clarification.
We don't actually have the opportunity to approve that report. It's just simply a report, correct?
No, all you're doing is accepting the numbers.
Right.
You're not approving the
Right.
numbers.
We
Yeah.
don't, we may disagree with what they're saying, but it's a report that we receive,
Right,
period.
yeah.
Mr. Small, one other question. The traffic impact analysis that they included in there, and they listed a bunch of intersections, did they include the intersections in the municipalities, or just in the town, or in the county, I mean?
They typically do not, but every time we get a development that has that we require a traffic study, we give it to the county to review,
Okay.
and to the state if there's a state road involved.
Okay. But is that, well, are the same assumptions used? In other words, the county, because I understand our TIAs are done by the developer and approved by the town, the county, state, but are all the assumptions the same as
All
what
the
would be
standards
u-
that they use to review, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the assumptions they used in the analysis about, I don't know, how they come up with the traffic numbers, that are they the same used in the growth report, traffic impact analysis, as what our developers in town would use?
We modeled our requirements on the county's requirements, but over the years, they've had some slight changes. One of the things that, so to answer your question is, the same standards are used between the town and the county, but there are differentiations between town and county based on recent changes. And one is that if you look at most of the roads in town, there's no place to improve. I mean, there's no expansion there's no right-of-way to be able to expand another lane. And so we have some limitations based on that. So we also look at what they call operational issues. And whether or not a intersection functions based on queuing of vehicles, based on whether or not there's turning movements can stay in the lanes that they're supposed to stay in. And the big one for us has been pedestrian conflicts. So we require every developer who hires a traffic engineer to do what they call observational review of each intersection to make sure that there's no pedestrian issues that pop up. The county doesn't require those pedestrian requirements because they're the county. They're less, pedestrians are less, I can't say less important. The conflicts don't arise in the county as much.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Small? All right. Next on our agenda is the red light camera contract, and that would be Chief Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to do my best, and pardon me if I have a little cough that I can't quite get rid of, but I'm going to do my best to bring our red light camera contract renewal to you. And just to give you some familiarization with our red light camera program, we have 4 in town. One is northbound 24 at Baltimore Pike. The other is southbound 24 at Bolton Street. The other is westbound 22 at Main Street. And the last is Baltimore Pike at Kenmore Bond Street. They bring in we issue around 9,000 tickets a year. And overall, let's go back to 2017. Since 2017, we've issued nearly 46,000 red light camera citations. And at our last red light camera meeting down in Howard County, we are one of the counties that has the highest pay rate, which is fortunate for us. We're right at 89% pay rate. So people, I think they pretty much understand that they're going through those red lights, and they're working out well. But we have a partnership with Howard County Police Department. It's called the Regional Automated Information Enforcement Center, and what they do is they get a vendor, the American Traffic Standards, ATS, and Vera Mobility. They get a contract. Our last contract was through them. Our current contract is set to expire at the end of this month. So more than likely, it sounds like it's going to be Vera Mobility again. So what we have to do is we have to get that renewed contract through Howard County Police Department, and then we're going to piggyback off of them. So I'm just waiting right now for my contact down in Howard County, Mr. Adam Uasi, to solidify that contract, and then I'll work on getting it to you to present to you. So I'm still kind of in limbo waiting for that contract to get to us. Did you have any questions on that? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Any thoughts of any additional cameras?
So that's a good question, and we actually explored that several years ago. And we looked at the automated speed cameras. And we tried to get that passed through SHA. They did their studies, and they said that it didn't qualify. And where we were going to do it, where it was right there at Main Street, where Bel Air Elementary School is, we thought that maybe that could qualify as one of the speed zones, and it didn't pass muster with them. We also tried to get additional red light cameras. And, you know, what SHA does in that kind of situation, they'll go out and look at the intersections that we wanted to do that, and I think one of them was Moores Mill and Hickory Avenue, I think, right around there. I think that was one of them, but they're looking for certain types of frequent crashes, and that's like the T crash. And we didn't qualify for any of those, but yes, we have tried, and we'll probably try again in the future.
Okay.
I can foresee that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, number 5, staffing update. I believe that is Mr. Krantz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 2 jobs that are currently posted, a laborer in the Department of Public Works and a procurement officer, which is part-time. I only emphasize part-time because we received a number of applications from people who have sought, applied, but they're looking for full-time work. So we're going through the screening process and talking about that with them as well. So it's 16 hours. Someone with a fairly substantial procurement background would be wonderful to work here of the town of Bel Air. And a laborer is, of course, a full-time job with full benefits, medical, dental, vision, as well as retirement and other paid leave off opportunities.
Any questions for Mr. Krantz? All right. Good luck filling those positions. Number 6 is calendar. I know the calendar has been distributed, so it's our job to take a look at it and make sure that everything is on there that we think ought to be on there. And if you find anything that looks wrong or is missing, I always let Mr. Hopkins, Mr. Krantz, and Ms. Seitler know, and then it'll appear. Anything else about the calendar? All right, then we are on to number 7, miscellaneous. A, discuss amending the itinerant dealer and peddler map regarding 332 Baltimore Pike. Is that Mr. Krantz?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pass around the itinerant dealer and peddler map that we're talking about here. Matter of fact, just take one and pass it down. You may have seen this before. It's the map that identifies private and public properties that allow a itinerant dealer or peddler. And let's just use what we're talking about, really a food truck. Most people think of itinerant dealer and peddler in the terms of a food truck. So I'm just going to use the terminology food truck. It's just easier to say, and that's what commonly everyone's thinking of. So the map currently was made back in 2013 and has had very few amendments since then. What we have is we have the owner of, owner of 332 Baltimore Pike and a concerned advocate or citizen acting on their behalf to request that we amend this map to allow a food truck on that piece of property, 332 Baltimore Pike. It's really just that. I wanted to bring it to your attention to let you know. The owner and the concerned citizen who's been advocating on their behalf have been informed that this map exists and that the current property does not allow a food truck to operate there. The philosophy behind the map, I think, had a lot to do with the brick and mortar business owners who did come out and enforce years ago to stand up for their concerns about their investments that they've made into their businesses and not wanting the ability of a food truck to pull up right next to their establishment or near their establishment. But I should caveat that comment with most of those businesses were Main Street businesses. And this particular piece of property, 332 Baltimore Pike, is not on Main or Bond, where we've had most of our citizen feedback in the past. So perhaps with that caveat, it might open itself up to further discussion that we haven't considered.
Madam Chair. Actually, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was going.
Located on the map.
Yeah, 332 Baltimore Pike is actually a strip of land that sits between Bud Irwin's Car Wash and Grove's Plumbing. For those of us who grew up in Bel Air, there was a beauty salon there at one point. It was the yellow building right along Plumtree Run, right next to the car wash. It's that strip of land between two properties.
Okay.
This, pardon me, but this is just an item for discussion. There's no proposed ordinance or legislation at this point, but I wanted to formally bring it to your attention on behalf of the citizens and the property owners. So
So what's there currently? Anything, nothing?
It's empty. It's an empty piece of ground.
Nothing.
There you go.
Nothing's there, Commissioner.
Nothing's there. That's
They've
what I
been-
thought.
It's located in a floodplain.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've been approved for what you call a barbecue shack or ice cream shack, something that would have gone in there.
That's what
Do
I
you recall?
Yes.
Mhm.
And they were approved for it, but one of the requirements was is they need to get an easement from Bud Irwin to be able to act, because their access out onto Baltimore Pike is a one-way access. It's about 12 feet wide. And so they would have to have some way of getting in. You can't have two vehicles conflicting on that access point. And I don't think, I'm not sure whether or not the state highway would allow them to widen that or not. But anyway, that's been their problem, because I think that approval is about to run out.
They had also, Madam Chair, they have not renewed it, but probably June, July, had called us, asked if the town might be interested in purchasing it. However, at the time, they weren't sure, and I suggested they come back to us in the fall after the election, but they've not renewed any interest in it.
So I'm going to kind of assume that they're looking for another way to get some revenue out of that piece of ground that they own and have run into difficulties putting up a bricks and mortar
Right.
shop. So it would be, instead of a bricks and mortar shop, a food truck.
Food truck. And I'm not sure that really solves their access problem.
I also have questions about if I decide I want to get something from the food truck, where am I going to pull in and park my car?
The
On
way
the
that was,
property of the car wash?
no, the way, there's like gravel down there that had existed there for a while. And you'd be pulling in straight off of Baltimore Pike through a little curb cut. And then, but to get out, you'd have to go through Mr. Irwin's car wash site, because you couldn't turn around and
I
then
see.
go back out the same way you came in. Yeah, it's kind of a,
Tight.
accident waiting to happen if
Yeah.
that were the case.
Thank you.
I just had a question on Director Small. Is that, just trying to pitch the vicinity in my mind, is that in the same block, so to speak, as far as public roads as the Cajun chicken thing? Raising Cane?
It's
yeah.
a little bit east of that, but yeah.
Because Raising, yeah, so Raising Cane, that's going in the old, Pete Cycle.
Right, Raising Cane's would be right across the
Plumtree Run.
Plumtree Run from this site they're talking about.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Eldridge, Raising Cane's is here. This is Grove Plumbing. This is the plot we're talking about, and the car wash is here. Atwood Road would be here, Baltimore Pike, and right across the street would be the the auto parts store, and then the former Kunkel building. So
Yes.
it's really narrow piece of property right there.
Yeah, thank you.
if any commissioner would like to take on this cause, all it would take would be add it to the agenda, and a commissioner could motion it to see if it would be seconded, if anybody wanted to make any changes to this particular piece of legislation.
When we give, we don't give permits anymore for food trucks, would that be right?
We do,
We
but
do
we've
give
had
permits.
we've had an amendment, maybe 3 years ago now, which before, whenever anyone wanted to operate a food truck, even in the permitted private property areas, they also had to come to the town of Bel Air, the town clerk's office, the admin department, and apply for an itinerant dealer or food truck permit. It seemed a bit redundant, especially for the establishments such as Independent Brewery, who have food trucks there constantly, and it's their business model to do so. And having a food truck come in who might not be an independent on a regular basis, or they come in on a one-off time, or a food truck that was intended to be there, not just an independent, but perhaps any other establishment that regularly uses food trucks. And then that person, maybe they canceled without notice, and they had to get a substitute food truck. Suddenly, the substitute food truck doesn't have a town permit, or the changes to the food truck schedule happen so quickly sometimes that maybe those people don't have a town permit. But one thing they do have in common is all those food truck operators have their state permit. They have their Harford County permit. They have their health department permit. And as long as all those things were in place, the previous board who put in this exception believed that it seemed redundant to require those food truck operators to come in and also get a town permit just for the sake of getting a town permit, when they certainly had the right to operate with the federal, or not the federal, but the state, county, and health department permits. So right now, a food truck would really need a permit from my office if they are going to operate on a public right-of-way that is indicated in red on the map that I distributed to you. You see the roads that are highlighted in red, those are the public right-of-ways where the previous boards have designated that a food truck could get a permit from the town of Bel Air and park there and operate.
Thank you. I thought I remembered that we had done away with permitting of the food trucks generally because
private
it was,
property, yeah.
they already had plenty of permits, and we're just trying to protect where they are more than make sure they're in compliance with health department rules and that kind of thing.
So are the areas in blue here and the roadways, the right-of-ways in red, are those the only areas that you can have a recurring use of a food truck, or even for a special event, those are the only places that you could have a food truck?
This map is designed more specifically
For both.
for recurring uses. A special event happens to be, you hit on another exception in the code, because the 4th of July, the barbecue bash,
Winter Wonderland.
the Winter Wonderland, when events organizers like that, typically those are nonprofit organizations, come in and apply for the event permit, the town grants that event permit, and along with it, they grant them the authority to invite a food truck, for instance, to their event without requiring the food truck to have to come pay a couple $100s to be at that event and
Right, okay.
with getting a town permit. So it's another exception.
So this is more for the recurring?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
So the food truck we're discussing here would come and go and come and go. It wouldn't be,
I would imagine it could be a different food truck. It could
Okay.
be dozens of food trucks that he could contract with to park there. And
Okay,
I'm sure
I
they
see.
would work out some type of agreement, but the things that you've mentioned, where would people park? Would this be
Yeah.
only pedestrian and not vehicular at all, customers? That's to be discussed, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
And that is what I see as the biggest challenge here, is I can see that you could get a food truck there, but I don't see how they're going to have any real access other than on foot.
Or by illegally parking in
Somebody else's, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too much in favor of doing this piecemeal. I mean, I think these kind of things need to be done in a comprehensive way, where you think it's well thought out. I don't think doing it on a property-by-property basis is the right way to do it. Unless we look at it holistically, that's all.
If anybody would like to discuss it further, just let me know.
Well, I think we can all ponder that and see what we think, maybe drive past it.
Yeah.
All right.
Take a field trip.
7C is hotel tax legislation update.
Actually,
And-
Madam Chair, we missed 7B.
Oh, I'm sorry, we did. Oh, discussion on Burns Alley engineering contracts. Probably a Freudian slip, Mr. Small.
This is going through the motions. For everyone's edification, Burns Alley has been the subject of efforts to be improved over the years. A lot of this has its nexus in the efforts for the Alliance to come up with some expanded areas to have First Fridays, things like that, barbecue bash. What you have is a preliminary design for it, some kind of supporting information about where, circulation might flow. And then the big issues is these are the minutes from various community meetings that we've had. And now these minutes don't really capture the angst that the neighborhood.
The mood of the room is not captured by these minutes.
Flavor of it.
So read through those, take a look at them. This is not something that, needs any decision tonight, but it's more just information. Because in the process of how we've gone through and done several meetings with the folks, we're trying to get them to understand what we're trying to do. And we're trying to move towards doing engineering, because this money has been set aside for engineering from ARPA. And also, money has been set aside for construction. If it's the desire of the commissioners not to move forward with Burns Alley, that needs to happen relatively quick so that that money can get reallocated. But it is, the whole idea is to create kind of what we call the backdoor Main Street, and kind of push the economic activity to a area parallel to that in this kind of short little area, distance of Burns Alley. You can see how the preliminary design's been done. It's gone through a pretty extensive, like I said, public review. But I don't remember, I think Commissioner Edding and Commissioner Chance, both of you were there, and also
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins. So you could fill in everybody else on the.
And as I recall, there's $500,000 earmarked for this of
For
ARPA money?
construction, yeah.
Okay.
And 85,000 for engineering.
85 and 500, okay. And Ms. Moody, I know we have to commit our funds by the end of calendar year 2024 and spend them by the end of calendar year 2025, correct?
That's correct.
And how much, I know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know how much ARPA money we have if we spend this $585,000 on Burns Alley, not committed to any projects?
So you had asked me a couple of work sessions
Correct.
ago to provide the amount that is uncommitted.
Right.
So to back up a step, our ARPA award was really just shy of 10 million. So it was $9.969 million. We have received all of that money from the federal government. It actually came through the state to us. We didn't get it directly from the feds. So to date, of that 9.9, we have committed 6.6 million. So that leaves us with roughly 3.3.
Okay, and the 6.6 includes this $500,000 or so for the Burns Alley project?
No,
No,
because
it
that's
does
not, that's not
Okay.
actually committed yet. When I,
Correct, okay.
in my eyes, committed means we've signed a contract, we have a purchase order
Right.
for it.
Okay,
I want to, there's a lot more to this that will definitely go over during orientation, because there's several holes here that need additional information, such as, the project at Thomas Street and George Street. The estimated cost is $1 million. We've only committed $84,000. And that was a project that everyone was on board with moving forward. So again, that's a project that needs further discussion. Steve has some major sewer projects that need to be looked at. We've kind of used that as a gap filler so to speak, knowing that we want to spend as much money in that area as possible. But to date, we've only committed $320,000, and he has well over probably $2 million that he could use. It also does not include our, our patrol for PD and our Public Works vehicle replacements for fiscal year '25. We've used this money, and it is committed for '23 and '24, but we also said we were going to utilize it in '25. So again, you know, there's a lot that needs to be gotten into the details a little bit more. But in general, we have a little over 3.3 million left.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other discussion on the Burns Alley engineering contract?
So it's not really a matter of Plan B, it's really a matter of do we really want to do it? Because we have a lot of other projects that we could use that money for, correct? Is that how you see it?
Yep. I mean, that's how I see it.
Okay.
And do you know that the engineering, this is for engineering, there's options you could follow by doing engineering and then kind of shelving the plans for some time later. It's the 500,000 that would be for construction is likely only going to pay for a phase 1 of that construction. And that would include basically the areas that are owned by the town and the right-of-way.
It would include what again?
It would include the right-of-way and the areas owned by the town. Those are the areas that the town controls, and we don't have to get permission from anyone else to.
So the 500K wouldn't even finish the project?
It would not.
And what the town owns is that laid out in this package?
Not really. It's, if you look at the map up
The
front.
drawing?
Yeah. You're looking at Burns Alley
Mm-hmm.
itself, which would get the paving removed and more special paving put in there. And that paving, there are opportunities to get grants because we would likely want to put in pervious pavers, and that Chesapeake Trust has given us money in the past for this project. And then the parking area that would be on the, I guess if you're facing the garage, it's on the left-hand side of the access. That's our parking lot. What's on the right-hand side of the access is Sheriff's Department and county-owned.
So the green space there to the left of that walkway going into the parking garage is the town, and where the stage is and to the right is the county.
Correct.
And then the Oddfellow lot, the lot behind the Oddfellows, which is for parking, is,
That is,
who owns that?
we've stayed away from that. That's owned by
The
the
Oddfellows.
Oddfellows. And I believe the Tower Restaurant rents the spaces on it.
So this would only include the paving, and then the project, would it include the circle there, and then just the town property to the left of the entrance?
Right,
That's
it's
all the
probably only a portion of the circle, but we'd like to get the whole thing. It all kind of depends on, the whole idea is to take this through the engineering and then see what we can get based on their estimates.
Right.
But yeah, we'd prefer to do the whole circle, if we can.
Mr. Chismore, we have entered into a conversation with the sheriff, and so the sheriff is willing to work with us as long as the county would surplus that property to the town. The challenge existed that there's a fuel pump there. So then how long that fuel pump's lifespan is, we're not sure. So the sheriff is very much in favor of transferring that property. He's okay with giving up his parking, so for the betterment of that and development of that alley. The question would be if the county executive would be willing to let the property go at some point.
Right, and then the county would incur the expense of putting in a new fuel tank and.
Well, actually, from my previous history with the county, I believe that fuel pump would be taken out at some point. There's been a
Oh,
desire,
okay.
a desire to take that pump out of town because of the hazards that exist with it. Let me be clear, not that hazards exist with it now. I think long-term, they would probably like to see that fuel pump be moved and you go to Hickory for your fuel, where they currently go now. The other challenge, too, is that this is constantly evolving. I know Mr. Small is talking to some of the property owners individually. So the shotgun approach that we took at the beginning probably was not the right because that's the one Commissioner Eddy and Commissioner Chance had. They were quite upset. But I think over time, with things evolving, things may change. This also gives us a pathway to an existing pathway that goes to the Armory Marketplace. So we already have a start in one sense, and that, again, I realize from your question before, we have to take other capital projects that are more prioritized first. But we've been struggling for a long time to find a venue that the town can have for the betterment of the people, for the enjoyment of the people. Not that this is about buying an entertainment venue with tax dollars, but First Fridays, Downtown Alliance, we don't own Main Street, and we struggle to do. And so this was an alternative to how do we give something back to the public, that something we control with streets that we can close for, for green space, for a venue for the public to enjoy things like First Fridays and other safe things. So it's a lot to consider, but it's just something we wanted to bring to your all attention for discussion, and see what your thoughts were.
Another
Thank you.
question, looking at this map that's occurred to me, that lot between the Tower Restaurant and the Sheriff's Office, do we own that entire lot?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, and is that where the old BB&T was, that we took down?
yes.
Okay,
So BB&T
Um,
or the Farmers Bank?
Well, it was Farmers BB&T, commercial in Virginia.
Commercial
Been,
savings.
been
First Virginia.
changed over a few times.
Yeah.
changed over, last time I saw it was BB&T, but
Yeah.
now it's a parking lot. If there were a building there, would that impact this project? In other words, do you need that parking lot there to make this project the way you would want it to be?
I think the only thing design-wise that we would like to see is some kind of connection from Main Street to Burns Alley so that it creates a little bit more synergy at that location. But if there was a building, like, say, connected to the sheriff's office, and even if the parking
If
was
the old
on-
BB&T were still there,
Yeah, that would be fine.
that would still be fine? Okay, this
Yeah,
would
there's
still work.
parking there on the side, too.
Yeah, certainly still parking in the parking garage.
Right.
All right.
One other thing that, just to add, is that we were anticipating when we took the EV charging station out of the garage,
Mhm.
that we would be talking to BG&E about where else to put a charging station, because the town really doesn't have any now. The two locations that we're looking at one is here, as part of these improvements, or Bon Thomas lot.
I'm sorry, what was that, the what lot?
The Bon Thomas parking lot.
Okay.
We're trying to find a place where it's away from structures, things like that, in case there's some problems.
You mean where the Mary Stowe building, the parking lot there?
It's
Across the street.
next to Vagabond,
Back, okay,
yeah.
Behind Vagabond.
behind Vagabond.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the Burns Alley engineering contract? All right, next is the hotel tax legislation update. Is that Ms. Robertson? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we do not have a hotel in Bel Air, so you may be wondering why we're bringing this up this evening. It does have the county code. There is a bill that's currently been introduced to change the way the funding from the hotel tax is distributed. And it would have a negative impact on Bel Air, even though we do not have a hotel. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed, since that's current legislation being proposed at the county council level. The negative impact from Bel Air would come from the amount collected from hotels that are located outside of a municipality, as that pool of money is currently proposed to decrease by 50%. So the impact to us in Bel Air would be twofold. It would impact the tourism grant funding that comes to our nonprofits, and would also impact Visit Hartford's pool of funding as well. Currently, the county code requires that 50% of the hotel occupancy tax revenue that's collected within the county's municipalities be distributed directly to those municipalities. So if we did have a hotel here, which we hope to one day, 50% of the hotel tax that's collected would come back to the municipality. The remaining revenue is to be spent on tourism activities anywhere within the county. This bill, if adopted, would change how the county's share of revenue is distributed, so that at least 50% of the revenue that's collected would be prioritized for spending on activities within the district where the tax is collected, whether or not it's in municipal limits. So it affects the money that's collected outside of Havre de Grace and Aberdeen. It also provides that council members' requests for funding of tourism-related activities would be forwarded directly to the county executive for consideration. The remaining amount could be spent in any district. And additionally, the bill specifies that hotel tax occupancy tax revenue may not be used for capital projects, which we were glad to see that change. This bill was initially up for introduction in October, and it was delayed, and that was a change that was made as a result of that delay. Chair Edding and Commissioner Chance, you may recall we discussed in late September or October, and one of our concerns then was that Councilman Jan Giordano had been a sponsor of the bill. He has removed himself from the sponsorship of the bill, but it has still been introduced. There will be an opportunity for public comment on December 5th through County Council, but I just wanted to make sure that you all were clear about how that would impact us. So some of the nonprofits that do events in the town of Bel Air and do work for our community in Bel Air that receive the tourism funding and could potentially be impacted by this would be the Bel Air Downtown Alliance, Rockfield Manor, Hartford Artists Association, and the Maryland Center for the Arts, which, while they are not located in the town of Bel Air, they do a lot of events in the town of Bel Air. The second way that we would be impacted would be through funding that might be available for Visit Hartford, which is our destination marketing organization. If the Visit Hartford budget was impacted, examples of the impact to the town of Bel Air would include Restaurant Week, which has been a very successful way for our residents to, and people coming from outside as well, to take advantage and support our local restaurants. I mentioned earlier this evening Arts Across Hartford. That funding could also be impacted. Visit Hartford is currently working on a Shop Small campaign for our businesses, not only for November for Small Business Saturday, but again in February when our businesses tend to see a dip in their sales. Visit Hartford is working on a Shop Small campaign during February to help our businesses. There's potential for that funding to be impacted. They currently coordinate group tours, visits, and look at bringing people in from other areas, and that is a real benefit to our businesses here, both restaurants and our retail establishments, and that if there's not marketing for that, people are less likely to come. Sports tourism is a very large attraction in Hartford County. Again, a lot of that happens outside of municipal limits, but because we are the heart of Hartford, we see a lot of the benefits of those people being in our county and being in our establishments. So we would not want to see that those marketing efforts, and just the efforts to bring those events here for that to decrease. There are also multiple events that are funded directly by Visit Hartford that are outside of the tourism grant. Examples of those include the Barbecue Bash, the Hartford County Wine Festival, Winter Wonderland. All of those kinds of events could be impacted if there wasn't the available funding to Visit Hartford. Fewer visitors here would mean less spending overall to our restaurants, to our retail. Visit Hartford markets to areas like DC, Philly, New York, and we receive a great economic impact from the people that come in and visit our town from outside of Bel Air. So while we don't have a hotel here, the way that hotel tax is distributed really can have a twofold impact on both our nonprofits and our tourism organization. So that's why I wanted to make sure you were up to speed on that. Any questions?
Yes, if I understand what you're saying, is right now the hotel tax is distributed throughout the county, 100%. But the new, no?
Not quite. go ahead and ask your question, then I'll clarify.
But then, when you say 50% will stay within the district, that's the councilman's district, the Hartford County Council, or which district are we talking about?
Yes, the councilman's district. So currently, 50% of hotel tax revenue that's collected for a hotel that's within a municipality stays in that municipality. The other 50% goes into the big pool of funding to be distributed.
Right.
If there currently any hotels are located outside of a municipality, all of that money also goes, 100% goes into the big pool.
Right.
The change proposed is that 50%, just like in the municipalities, would go to that
to the pool,
district.
right.
Maybe that's what you were saying,
Right,
and I just
that's- yeah.
misunderstood.
Just-
Sorry.
Right. Excuse me, right now, yeah, right now, everything goes into the pool, except the
Correct.
municipality to be
Correct.
distributed, and now, okay.
Yeah, so it is currently FY '22, $3.2 million collected in the hotel tax revenue, projected in and then FY '23, so not projected, but FY '23, $3.5 million. Of that $3.5 million, $1.4 million was collected outside of Aberdeen and Havre de Grace. So it's $1.4 million that would be affected.
And so under the new change, the only monies that we would see would be collected in District C that are outside that other half. I didn't formulate that well, but
The ways that we would be impacted, we don't receive any money directly because of this, because we
Right,
don't have a
right.
hotel. So it would just be through the funding, through the tourism grant to
Right.
our local nonprofits, and if the Visit Hartford funding was affected, could have a negative impact on us as well. But right now,
Okay.
otherwise, there's no impact. And I think I misread my addition. I think it was 1.7 million, not 1.4 in FY '23.
I just had a question on this,
Sure.
the timing on how quickly this train is hurtling down the tracks. So this bill's up for a county public hearing on December the 5th?
Correct.
And what's the timeline then on when they would vote? Same night? Or do you know whether the vote would be put off further?
The only information I have in front of me is that it would take effect 60 days after it was adopted, but I can get back to you after this evening with whether it would potentially be voted on the same evening. I don't think so, but I do need to double check that.
So then I have a question, a technical question related to that for council, which would be, what is our time restrictions on, can we like pass a resolution on the 4th if we put it up on the 4th to make a formal objection? Or like a proclamation? I'll give you some context. When we were fighting the TransSource litigation before the, with the power lines up in the northern part of the county, and we convinced the Hartford County Council to actually pass a statement, an official statement, that even though they had no direct influence on it, that they opposed the Public Service Commission granting that. And we were able to get those types of statements of support from a number of legislative bodies as we fought that on behalf of the landowners. So if the town wanted to, if the commission wanted to pass some statement which solidified the objections that have just been articulated to it, what would be our options as far as, like, what would that look like? Would it be a resolution or just a proclamation of opposition? What type of public support could we do? Because if we could do something on the 4th before the hearing on the 5th and use that to make the point with a couple of the council people.
Okay, under the charter and under Maryland law, there are two types of actions that a legislative body can take: an ordinance or a resolution. A resolution is defined as a expression of opinion concerning a particular topic coming under the legislative body's purview. So if you wanted to express some sort of objection to this proposed legislation that the county council may be passing, the appropriate action would probably be to submit a resolution. Do it before 48 hours before the meeting, so this agenda needs to be updated because you have to put the public on notice that it's going to be there. Mr. Krantz can issue a resolution number. You can craft the language yourself, or we can talk about it and what exactly you want to say. Understanding that, obviously, what happens in the town of Bel Air is not, with all due respect, necessarily watched with a critical eye from the county council. So what you may want to do is pass your resolution, and Madam Chair, on behalf of the board, submit a letter to the county council and say, this is the act of the board, and expressing our displeasure at the legislation proposed. Does that answer your question?
It does. So along that trajectory, Madam Chair, I would like to add, to put the wheels in motion to amend our agenda for the December 4th meeting, and I think that the language that should be crafted by the technical experts, you know, in the area with regard to, I think that if we could craft something that wasn't necessarily just encourage a blanket rejection, rather than have some way to make sure that our local nonprofits that are such a critical part of making Bel Air a great town are not being punished by this.
Just to clarify, Ms. Robertson, as the director, can advise you in an advisory capacity in her specialty of economic development, and she can draft it, but the board is going to have to express what its displeasure is, not Ms. Robertson.
No, I totally understand that.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the drafting of it rather than one of us, because I would certainly be a proponent of such a resolution, and I could either work directly with Mr. Krantz, or I could work with, you know, Mr. Hopkins, or directly with any of the,
I just want to make sure it was
director.
understood that.
I
we
understand that.
Okay.
I was talking about first draft on that, rather than one of us having to try to come up to speed, because I think the core objections that I'm so persuaded by tonight, you know, are the fact that our local nonprofits and Visit Hartford are going to be punished by this, and this is not something that we can stand for as a town, to the extent that we can express our persuasive influence on votes on the county council. And as we may try to persuade county council members to put the brakes on that, I'm in favor of a resolution being adopted by the commission to be armed with that as well.
That's totally fine as an official act of the Board of Town Commissioners. You may also wish to consider contacting Tony G. on the county council
Absolutely.
to discuss that as the representative of our town, basically, in the county level.
Sure.
So just a suggestion.
I
Would that
think
help?
that's an excellent suggestion. Do we want to actually add it to the agenda and pursue both avenues?
I think we pursue all avenues. I'd be happy to talk to any of the councilmen I know.
So just to clarify, you want Ms. Robertson to begin the first draft and provide it to the board for that objection?
If you're willing to do that.
Are you comfortable?
Or just an outline of the couple of the more objectionable points, and then we could craft it from there. Just the way you articulate
Ms.
it.
Robertson, are you comfortable with that? How are you feeling about that?
I can certainly get that started, but as council indicated, that would come from the board. But I had shared, and again, with the new members of the board, that's why we had it on the agenda this evening. I had shared most of those points with commissioners before, so Commissioner Edding and Chance, you may recall seeing that, I believe, back in September or early October. It was October. And so I can certainly use those points if that's what your wishes are.
Yeah, I agree that we need to get this moved forward ASAP, because this can really hurt us if the county ignores our request, at least we've had the opportunity to say, this is how we feel, we're not happy with this, this is very narrow-minded, whatever.
And to point out the actual harm that'll
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Because the town of Bel Air, while it's only 10,700 people or so, we have tens of thousands coming to town to eat, to shop, to enjoy Winter Wonderland. So if the funding for those groups that, help put those things
Absolutely.
together is cut, it'll be detrimental to the county as a whole. So
Correct.
I
Agreed.
think, and Ms. Robertson, what we're looking for from you, or at least what I would be looking for, is the technical points, because you're well-versed in what the
Mhm.
legislation will do and what the current system does do for us as far as funding.
Sure.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to have two commissioners to, so we're not violating the open meeting rule, to work with Ms. Robertson on this?
No, you could,
I mean,
two
to the
commissioners definitely should be
Right.
working with her,
And
yeah.
the two commissioners would want to, to work directly, and then that would be presented at the
Yeah.
next meeting, so at
I
least we
think
have,
that's a great idea.
Yep, that
to work.
works. Please do.
Would you like to
So-
be one of those commissioners, Commissioner Chance?
I am not the expert in legalese here. Whereas I think the gentleman on the other end of the dais down here has a better handle at that. And, I mean,
Well, if we wanted
I'm
two
fine.
commissioners, you are very well-versed in many of the community groups that do good work
certainly,
in the town.
I'm happy to do that part. I'm happy to
Yeah.
speak to that.
think that's an important part of it.
Okay,
Right,
sure.
That is
I
the
just too.
most
Yeah.
important part.
right.
Yeah,
There's
we
the
can-
technical part, and then what
Yeah, we can speak the legalese all we want, but what might actually change the minds is the material effect that this will have.
right.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where,
Correct.
that's
And
where
I can
you're the
speak to
expert.
that.
Yeah.
I can speak to
Right,
that.
you can s-
Okay,
right.
yeah,
Okay, great,
I'm fine with that.
great.
You are certainly also welcome to attend the public hearing before the county council and voice your objections at that, just like anybody else.
As a citizen, but not as a commissioner. Or,
As a commissioner,
sure.
because you're passing resolution to say, we are objecting
Right.
to this.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
With that in hand, if we have that in hand.
correct. And I would provide it to them ahead of time. So they have it.
Certainly,
As a courtesy.
Yes, as a
certainly.
courtesy.
We don't want to
Sure.
blindside anybody. I think it just came up,
Right.
tonight for me is the first time I'm learning about it, because it's my first official work session. So I thank you very much for the detail in pointing this out, and I think we all feel a sense of urgency about it, and if we do then adopt a resolution, then it would be, I think, appropriate for our mayor to make that presentation, if the chair would be willing, to do that as well, and any one of us could, personally advocate as well,
For sure.
with commissioners.
Do we
as
know
well.
who the remaining council people are, since Tony John Giordano has no longer sponsoring the bill?
It appears with what I have in front of me that the sponsors are council members Guthrie, Penman, Riley, Boyle Sottles, and President Vincenti.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's disappointing. That's disappointing.
But I'm not, and maybe they do understand the effect that it will have on the town of Bel Air and the good works organizations that are here, but maybe they don't. Maybe this will be an
Mhm.
opportunity to educate them,
Mhm.
and maybe they'll think about it and make some changes, but at least we have to
We
try.
have to speak to
We
it.
have
To get
to
on the
try.
record, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do believe that it's well-intentioned to help the districts where the hotels are located,
Sure.
but perhaps there's not a clear understanding of the negative impact it could have on the rest of the county, given what a good partner Visit Hartford has been,
Mhm.
certainly for Bel Air.
Right.
Right.
All right.
How many districts have hotels? How many of the districts have hotels in them? 'Cause, I'm just, we could look that up.
Yeah. Aberdeen, Havre de Grace, so District E, F, A, D, E, and another F, so. C, yeah, it's just C.
So unfortunately, C is the only one left out.
Right.
Doing a little alphabet shuffle there, but
Yep.
yes.
Okay, I didn't know they were all scattered, they were scattered throughout all the, so to say, we target the ones that don't have.
Yeah, much of the revenue that's
Compel something
collected
that don't
is
have it.
in Aberdeen. Almost 1.7 million of the 3.5 is in Aberdeen. And District F is a little over $1 million. The other's smaller.
You know, and I know we don't have a hotel, but for me, when I have people come from out of town, they're staying at the out-of-town hotels, but because they're coming to Bel Air, so, you know.
That's the rub.
That's the rub.
Yeah.
That's the rub.
Madam Chair, I believe also this legislation, the genesis of it was from Councilman Guthrie, looking for revenue for the Edgewood Joppa, Route 40 corridor in that specific area. That's the genesis of it, and then it has broadened from that.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, we have a plan, so. Next is the discussion of Commissioner liaison assignments. I know that Commissioner Chance and I are the only two that currently have liaison assignments, and it's our opportunity to shuffle some things around. I don't know, Commissioner Chance, if you're happy with all of the assignments you have, if you'd like to change anything.
I am happy with the ones I have currently, yes, and I would be happy to continue with the economic development and Rockfield. I'll throw my hat in and see who else is interested, but I would be happy to also work with the Downtown Alliance and the Cultural Arts Commission. There's plenty to go around.
There are plenty to go around. One thing I wanted to ask Mr. Hopkins, is it traditionally that the chair handles the DPW, planning, county and state? Or,
Yes, ma'am. Usually the higher, I don't want this to sound disrespectful, usually the higher-end liaisons with state officials, federal officials, and so forth is usually relegated to the chair, unless that person deems someone otherwise.
sure,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. So, Commissioner Taylor, I know you'd expressed an interest in economic and community development and being the liaison for economic development.
I'd be more than happy to defer to Commissioner Chance on that. You're the resident expert, so.
I'm definitely not the resident expert, but on the other hand, I think it would be good for a new commissioner to take that seat, so I understand. Completely, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'd be more than happy to defer, but I know you have a couple that you're interested in.
I do. I am, well, I could probably be interested in any and all of them, so.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and take the economic development, really.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
I appreciate that.
And so then Commissioner Chance would like the Downtown Alliance, Rockfield, and Cultural Arts.
Yes, I would.
Okey-doke. Anybody particularly interested in the Tree Committee or the Elderly and Needy Citizens? One thing that we probably should have brought to this meeting, and I didn't think of it, is when these committees meet. I know that the Planning Commission meets the first Thursday of the month if they have projects to look at. And there was a summer lull, but they often do have business to take care of. So that's the first Thursday of the month, and it is in the evening at 6, is it 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock,
6:30?
yeah.
6 o'clock. Okay. Planning Commission and Board of Appeals, two really very important.
Board of Appeals is the third Tuesday of the month. Right, there's no meeting in December, there's no submissions.
Another one that only meets if there are submissions.
Right, and they meet less often than the Planning Commission.
They do.
So, Madam Chair, what were your preferences?
Well, I think I'm going to stick with the county and state since it's traditional. I can
Okay.
certainly do, DPW. I have to look, I should look at the tree committee when they meet. We
I
have,
think it's the second Wednesday of the month, but I'd have to
gotcha.
get back to you.
And that's about 4:30 too.
Right, it's earlier.
Gotcha. So I think we have much of this covered, except for the Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals.
Historic preservation.
Historic Preservation,
Preservation. Committee on
Commissioner,
Elderly and Needy.
Commissioner Rutledge
Yes, I'm interested in that.
is interested in that, and Parks and Rec,
Parks and Rec and Historic Preservation,
and being liaison with the Police Department.
that is correct.
So, Tree Committee,
And you said
Did we
historic
get appearance and
preservation.
beautification?
Appearance and Beautification also.
Appearance and Beautification meets the second Monday of each month at 7 PM here at Town Hall. They usually miss July and August, and also the month of December.
All right. And we also have
So-
the Elderly and Needy Citizens Committee, which is 8:30 a.m., now moving to the fourth Wednesday of the month. And I think that's one of the few that actually meets like early in the morning, first thing.
I don't mind
So
doing
you
that
need-
one,
There you go.
unless someone else wants to. I have
Right.
my former world of the Office on Aging,
Great,
so,
right. And Karen Winkowski is
Mary?
there, so
Okay.
you
Yes,
will
yes.
see some people that you know.
yes.
If no one else is interested.
So the,
Oh, I was gonna say, appearance and beautification is one of the meetings I think I actually could make.
Okay.
Since that's opposite of the town hall meetings, that would be fine.
All right. I think we have pretty much everything covered except fire safety, and
Right. I
I'm
don't
not
think I have any assignments, so I was thinking,
Planning.
right?
planning.
Planning, Board of Appeals, Fire Safety.
There you go.
All right.
Historic Preservation is the fourth Thursday of the month,
Thank you.
at 6 PM.
Do we have all those assigned?
I think we do. I will
Okay.
send an email around just to make sure that we have it all
Mhm.
right, and then we can confirm it and vote on it on our next meeting on Monday,
Okay.
so.
So, now question,
Actually, our policy said that it did. And I found, let me see.
What's
He or she shall assign liaison responsibilities to each commissioner, the chair shall, subject to confirmation by a majority vote of the Board of Commissioners. So I'll send an email and hope we got it right, and we still have the opportunity to shuffle some things. If, maybe I'll send it around with the meeting schedule too, so everybody can just double check. And then if we need to shuffle anything, we can, and we'll take care of that on Monday and have that done.
just curious,
Yes, sir.
liaison with planning, is that, was that covered?
Oh, that's a good point.
And, you know, it makes sense for you to do that,
But,
to
okay.
be that.
Right. And then I had the question, the roles and responsibilities of commissioner on a committee and liaison with the department head. What are the roles? You know what I mean?
That is a good question, and what I had been doing as liaison was, I'm there, I listen to what goes on at the meeting, I report back at our meeting, so the other commissioners are aware if they haven't been there. I mean, any commissioner can attend any meeting, sit in the audience as an observer. It's, you know, if it's something that you're interested in, and I've done that myself, but if you.
But is that the commissioner of planning? Say planning, because there's a commissioner of planning commission and then a liaison with planning.
Well, that is a.
That's planning department liaison, okay?
Planning Commission liaison, which was Chairwoman Edding previously.
Right.
Planning Commission, so you sit up here with me and you report back and observe.
Correct.
It's not participatory.
Right, no vote.
No vote, right. Or anything like that. And then the liaison with the department head is,
Yes, that's.
we just talk? We go out to lunch? I mean, you know.
It's kind of the same thing, but it would be directly.
Okay.
And I know I think I've talked to somebody about legislation and how we have been introducing it. It doesn't look like the way any other legislative body has introduced legislation that I've seen. It's the staff asks us to accept it as opposed to we are introducing legislation. The town charter does say that the commissioner shall introduce legislation, so it's really just an administrative type of a change, but we might move to that. And if we do, then it would make sense that your liaison would be the person, on the board, would be the person that you would talk to about, I need legislation to increase fees, or, you know, change fence heights, or, you know, whatever it is. So that there would be some continuity there, somebody that knew that department, was going to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Appeals meetings, and would be more familiar with the business, and could be somebody that you could talk to about, this legislation is needed, and I'd like you to introduce it.
Okay.
Was one of my thoughts about what would make some sense. And I think it
Okay.
makes a great deal of sense to have the same person do Planning Commission, Board of Appeals, and the liaison to the Planning Department.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I would be at the Planning Commission and then go to the Board of Appeals meetings, because I was interested in, you know, seeing what happened with that project. And again, anybody can always attend. All these meetings are public meetings, open.
Mhm.
All right, anything more on our liaisons? Okay. Then we have review and discuss the Town of Bel Air Peace and Good Order article, the noise violations and penalties, and I think that's Commissioner Rutledge.
Yeah, I just requested that the topic be put on the agenda because I wanted to, really what I'm looking for would be sort of like a 6-month study period of maybe a very small committee to work with Chief Moore and just review what are the enforcement practices, et cetera, on noise in town. But I'm really not addressing in my mind necessarily the noise ordinance because it's pretty clear. Mr. Krantz, you know, put it down that way. But really, I'm more looking at what is akin in the state law, what we've got in the state law in the Transportation Code 2-609 provides that a person may not modify the exhaust system or the noise abatement device of a motor vehicle driven or to be driven on a highway in the state in such a way that the noise emitted from the vehicle exceeds that emitted by a vehicle as originally manufactured. That was going door to door in this town, a big issue that came up repeatedly about the pop-bang exhaust systems sounding like gunshots, sounding like rapid gunshots. It's woken me up in the middle of the night over, it's woken my neighbors up. I've got one neighbor that told me he's quit trimming the hedge along Hickory because he's got hearing issues. And when it's just once in a while we seem to get some people thinking maybe in 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles in a row decide it's time to ride Bel Air and let them know what's up. So I just wanted to just really engage in a small kind of review and study period. Nothing right, you know, rash or anything out of the box type of thing, but to start to examine how that interfaces with whether this is just a technical violation or whether you know, a 3 strikes you're out violation that would convert it to a misdemeanor for a repeat violator of this and let the word be known type of a thing. I just want to have those conversations because in my experience, a lot of times the broken glass kind of situation, what will be the pop bang kind of rate of Bel Air today might be the donut intersection raising problems that Baltimore County is suffering right now, and just want to start that conversation early on. That's all. And I wanted, Madam Chair, to see whether or not that would be, you know, appropriate. I can certainly engage Chief Moore in that as, you know, a liaison with the police department, but anybody else that would be welcome to it that didn't trigger the Open Records Act situation. I mean, the open meetings situation, I would like to be able to do that.
I think that's a great place to start with you and the chief. I actually had gotten a complaint about that myself, that people drive up and down like the Hickory and Broadway intersection, and I've heard it myself when I'm walking sometime. It's deafening. I don't know how they manage to make their cars that loud and why they're not deaf too, but at any rate, I think that's a great starting point.
There's some pretty interesting YouTubes on how to do it and do it cheaply. I don't have a stick shift anymore, so you know, I probably can't do the cheap and easy ways to do it, but I'm not inclined to mess with my cat
I
system
do,
and
I
the
just changed it.
exhaust, but a lot of people, they live for it, they seem to live for it.
We can, absolutely, we can get together, but I think we can come up with a pretty quick resolution. I've got some officers that are very aggressive, and I can just focus specifically on that. We've got not only transportation order, you said 22, 23, but we've got these handy little tools right here. They're called equipment repair orders. When you issue one of those to these people, they have to take their car and they have to get it inspected by a certified inspection station. And it's very costly, and you can issue the tickets on top of that. So, I mean, we can, I feel bad because I've heard those cars, but I haven't seen, I've seen very few complaints on that particular thing, but that's something I can definitely get our people to focus on.
Yeah.
We can give you raw numbers. Usually we issue, these aren't the typical, we have regular warnings, and then we have these where people have to do something with them. And you'll see, I can give you a copy of it, it's voided, but there's ones with asterisk that a police officer can inspect, and then there's ones without the asterisk, and that's what those kids don't like, because they have to take it to a certified inspection station, it costs them a lot of money. And if they take that car after they've had it inspected, and they modify it again, then you're looking at must appear stuff. And then usually the cops know the
Thank you.
violators. So, I'd be happy to talk with you about that.
Great, thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
Right. And I think there was one more thing that we needed to do, Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, it was in my notes for my report, and I completely overlooked it, but it actually has to do with the Christmas holidays. Typically, traditionally, we, as a body, do not meet the first Monday in January to give commissioners and staff alike a little bit of a break. We wanted to, for planning purposes, wanted to see if we were going to carry on with that tradition, or if the advice of the commissioners was to go a different direction, so staff can plan and we can plan agendas accordingly. The first meeting in January would be January the 2nd, since
January the 2nd.
New Year's Day falls on the first Monday. And if we don't meet, our meeting that follows that, Mr. Krantz, correct me if I'm wrong, will be January the 15th. That's the next Monday. But we would have a staff meeting and a work session
Right.
in the early part of January, but the first business meeting would be January the 15th.
Our meeting is actually on the 16th because of.
Or
Martin-
16th, rather,
yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
The
Holiday.
holiday.
You're
yeah.
right, I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
Anybody have any thoughts?
I'm good with that.
I
mean,
am,
I
I am
don't,
too.
unless there's anything special coming up that needs to be addressed, and then we do a special meeting, but other than that,
I agree.
Yeah, I don't have any objections.
Okay,
No, it's fine.
thank you,
Right.
Madam Chair, I
Very good.
appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. And last is commissioners' comments. Any comments from any commissioners? I did attend the Elderly and Needy Citizens Committee meeting this morning at 8:30. They do meet in the community meeting room over in the police department. The next meeting will be the fourth Wednesday of the month,
Right, December 27th tentatively. Right.
December 27th tentatively. And we do have 5 folks who we think are willing to serve. Some people have resigned. During COVID, there were no meetings, and there were meetings. Some people resigned. We need to sort of get that back on track. But I think after this morning's organizational meeting, we have folks who are willing to serve, and I think it's off to a good start.
Good.
Any other commissioners?
May I ask, when you list our assignments, if you could also, if you know what those dates are of those meetings, that would be helpful. Dates and
Absolutely,
times, places.
absolutely. I'm going to
That would
send
be
an
helpful.
email with the assignments and
Great.
when those entities meet, so that everybody can make sure that works for your schedule.
Great.
And we can move from there and reshuffle if we need to.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Krantz?
This is just a formality in terms of the operation of the microphones. I think everyone did a great job speaking into the mic tonight as we're learning our new technology. And upon adjournment, if you could please just press the button and turn off your mic after the meeting has adjourned, it'll give us time to cease the live stream.
So noted. Masood, how do we do on, we're doing well? Okay, good. Any other
I-
commissioners' comments?
Yeah, I just had one comment or note that, in anticipation of the one ordinance on the APF, the Adequate Public Facilities, I contacted the Board of Education to see if we can talk to them about what's the impact on the schools, on the students, on the staff, and all about, when they are over capacity. What does 100% mean? What does 105% capacity mean? Just so we're not, I like to make, decisions based on facts and, information, make an informed decision. So I have a meeting set up for December 7th at 2 o'clock with Ms. Valentino from their Facilities Management Office and Mr. Cornell Brown from their APF Advisory Board. And Ms. Edding, I think you said you would come with me.
I'm going to join you.
Join me with
I'd like to hear
that.
what they have to say.
So we may leave the employee luncheon a little early so we can get up there by 2 o'clock and meet with them. So it's, we just want to be more informed about what these numbers mean and what it means to the kids.
And we'll share that with you at our next meeting, so everybody can
Right.
have the benefit.
Okay?
All right. Any other commissioners' comments? All right. With that, we have completed our agenda for today, and we are adjourned. If everyone could turn off their mics, and it is 7:10 PM.